small affair to the girl with the mousy hair.
Hello and thanks for joining us for our weekly film show, starting with the hardly talked about Golden Globes. Jane Campion became only the third female director ever to win a Best Director award last Sunday, but actors, filmmakers and studios largely ignored the ceremony. Nicole Kidman, Rachel Zegler and Will Smith were among the other winners. Our film critic Lisa Nesselson is here. Hello, Lisa.
Hi.
Now, there was no telecast, no live streaming, no red carpet, no celebrity presenters, hardly any press. In recent years, as many as 18 million people have tuned in on TV. What's going on?
Well, until this year, the studios were in the habit of spending millions upon millions of dollars trying to get Golden Globe nominations from a tiny group of foreigners, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, or HFPA, who live in Los Angeles. The absence of a single black member was what set off a firestorm of shock and disapproval almost a year ago when the Los Angeles Times published an investigative piece revealing that while the members came from dozens of countries, not one of them was black. This time last year, there were 87 members, and now there are 105 members, including 6 new recruits who happen to be black. Back then, 100 publicists and PR firms wrote an open letter refusing to work with the association until they became more diverse and inclusive. However, these were the exact same people who had been arranging access to top Hollywood talent for the group, including junkets for them alone, and so had ample opportunity to figure out that they never saw a black journalist in the ranks. This year, the American TV network NBC, which contractually pays $60 million for the annual broadcast rights, refused to telecast the show.
And the Golden Globes are awarded for film and TV. Tell us, who did those 105 people vote for?
Well, the smart thing the Golden Globes do, along with their philanthropy, is divide their awards into 2 categories: Best Drama and Best Comedy or Musical. Jane Campion's Western, set in Montana in 1925, The Power of the Dog, won Best Drama, Director, and Supporting Actor for Cody Smith McPhee, who is my favorite component of what I find a perfectly adequate but overhyped film. And Steven Spielberg's terrific revisiting of West Side Story won Best Comedy or Musical, Best Actress for Rachel Zegler, who plays Maria, and Best Supporting Actress for Ariana DeBose, who plays Anita. Let's take a look.
Matters even more than love.
Will Smith and Nicole Kidman won the prizes for Best Actor and Actress in Film Dramas for their turns as a father and coach to tennis prodigies Venus and Serena Williams in King Richard, and as iconic American comedian Lucille Ball in Being the Ricardos. Best film not in the English language went to Japan's Drive My Car, which just swept the National Society of Film Critics Awards in the U.S. On the TV side, the series Succession won the most trophies. The HFPA says they're working to improve their reputation, and we'll see how the situation evolves and if NBC has a change of heart this time next year.
OK, well, let's talk about some of the films out in cinemas at the moment. Paul Thomas Anderson's affectionate period comedy Licorice Pizza has garnered mostly rave reviews. We know him for movies like Boogie Nights, Magnolia, There Will Be Blood and The Master. Tell us about his new film.
Well, Licorice Pizza, set in Southern California in 1973, is named after a real-life, now defunct chain of record stores. It's an enjoyable work of fiction about 15-year-old Gary, played with appealing confidence by the late Philip Seymour Hoffman's son Cooper, and 25-year-old Alana, played by musician Alana Haim. First-time film roles for both of them, and they're terrifically convincing. They're not a couple. They're 2 quirky individuals who we watch in a sort of rambling manner as his precociousness meets her indecision. They're friends, they're business partners who go into selling then-novel waterbeds. They're not having sex, they're not even making out.
OK, well, let's take a look at the early 70s vibe of Licorice Pizza.
This is fate that brought us together.
She's lived it 10 times or more.
Our roads took us here.
She could spit in the eyes of fools.
You're not my director.
They ask her to focus on.
Do you really want to see my boobs?
Can I touch them?
See you tomorrow.
I think it's weird to hang out with Gary and his friends all the time.
There's certainly a very interesting bond between them.
There is. Alana drives Gary places because he's not old enough to drive, and you really have to have a car and drive it in California. They talk, they argue, they bounce off each other in ways that are just fun for us to observe. It's an ode to hanging out in a pleasant climate, but it doesn't leave out unpleasant realities such as the oil shortage that slammed the U.S. that year. In the U.S., this is rated R for restricted, which means you have to be 16 to buy a ticket, which is pretty funny when you think that it's about a 15-year-old's mundane and offbeat adventures in a beautifully recreated time and place.
Okay, well, next to a French film called Between Two Worlds, starring Juliette Binoche. She plays a writer who goes undercover as a cleaner to report on what life is like for the nation's lowest earners. It's adapted from top French journalist Florence Aubena's book recounting her own experience of this. Tell us more.
Well, Juliette Binoche actually initiated the project because she was so taken by Aubenas' account of working along the side the people most people take for granted, cleaning up after us in hotels and offices, and in this case, on ferries. Director Emmanuel Carrère also adapted the material. He's a very prominent author who sometimes directs. I like the film, and I especially like the way the advertisements are structured. That's because the entire cast, except for Binoche, is comprised of non-professional actors, real working-class individuals who were cast to give the film its convincing look and feel. And the posters and the radio ads list all of their names first and add Binoche almost as an afterthought. They may never have acted before this, but boy, do they act. I really felt invited into their lives.
Okay, well, France 24 sat down with Juliette Binoche, who told us why she was so inspired by this story.
T'avais déjà travaillé avec Christelle?
Non, c'est la première fois que je la revois.
Si tu gagnes au loto, tu fais quoi?
Je fais quoi?
Ouais.
Eh ben écoute, comme d'hab, j'en donne un peu tout le monde. J'en donne à ma maman. Et ouais, là, je me fais plaisir. Je m'achète ma paire de baskets à 300 balles et mon tatouage.
Ouais.
J'ai été saisie par sa vérité, par sa...
I was drawn to the book's honesty, and it helped me understand the reality of these people who search for work all over the place, who don't have a car. They have to walk many kilometers during the night in bad weather. There are also some women in a situation where they have been left by their husbands, don't have a university degree, don't have a career, and find themselves all of a sudden working as cleaners.
You can watch the full interview with Juliette Binoche on our French channel later on or online at France24.com. Now, rumour has it that the journalist and Binoche's character is based on Florence Aubenas doesn't like the film because she crosses ethical lines that Aubenas herself would never cross.
I can see her point of view on this. She immersed herself in the work firsthand to report back to those of us with perhaps easier jobs, but she didn't get involved in her co-workers' lives the way Marianne most definitely does. Still, I think the message is powerful. The whole time Marianne is living in a port city in northern France, she always knows she can return to her comfortable, successful life in Paris once her research is done. The other people in the film have no such escape valve or particularly encouraging prospects. What they do have is their dignity and sense of solidarity, and that comes shining through.
Next, the actress and singer Charlotte Gainsbourg has made a documentary about her mum, the actress and singer Jane Birkin. Should we care, or was this mostly a home video?
Well, although she has fans all over the world, if you don't live here in France, I think it's hard to grasp the special spot Jane Birkin holds in the hearts of, I'd say, most French people. She very recently got out of the hospital after suffering a stroke. She has recovered, and the outpouring of affection was considerable. She has chronicled her life in a best-selling book, and it's been sort of a wonderful fluke. She comes from a British show business family. Her mother was an actress. Her brother is an actor and director. And she says quite lucidly that she would never in a million years have stood out if she'd stayed in England. She had the looks and attitude to perfectly match swinging London, and almost accidentally ended up appearing in French films, speaking French with the pronounced British accent she carries to this day. She acts, she sings some real classics, such as the breathy sex ballad Je t'aime, moi non plus, and she's had relationships with incredibly talented men, resulting in 3 talented daughters. The late photographer Kate Barry, with Jane's first husband, John Barry, who composed the iconic James Bond theme. Successful singer-songwriter Lou Doyon, with French film director Jacques Doyon, and very successful singer and actress Charlotte, whose father was the prodigiously talented and notorious Serge Gainsbourg. This film about her mom is sort of a rambling mess, with some interesting tidbits scattered around. It's a perfect example of a film that wouldn't warrant a commercial release or indeed a Cannes debut were it not for the subject matter. But that's perfectly okay because self-selecting viewers will enjoy it.
Okay, Lisa, thank you so much. We're going to leave you with a glimpse of Jane by Charlotte. Remember our website, we're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
Souvent, je me suis pas sentie responsable. Je me suis comportée comme une mère enfant, copine, peut-être pas assez responsable.
Pourquoi apprend-on à vivre sans sa maman? Il me semble que c'est un but qu'on se donne, s'affranchir à tout prix. J'ai pas envie de m'affranchir.